Before we get started, I will mainly be talking about the adventure mode. There is another mode called Dwarf Fortress, and it's the main way to play the game, but I never really got into it, therefore I won't be talking about it. Dwarf Fortress. It's a game about adventure, strife, and dying countless times to the same fort because it's one more obstacle to overcome in your quest to rule the entire world. I've played Dwarf Fortress for about a year and a half now, but I still find it fun to explore the world I first created and see what adventures I can go on. Although I would say Dwarf Fortress is a complicated game, it's still in development, and has been for quite a while. And I don't think adventure mode is the best it can be, so there are limits to what I could do in the game. Story time. My first player that I created was a black bear man. His name was Splart. Splart was a master at biting, and only wore one thing, his legendary thong. So when he went out to explore the world, he found a fort and scaled the wall and tried to make friends with the inhabitants, but they mercilessly killed him.
Next player.
My longest living player was an axeman human that killed around 18 people as I tried to get my bearings on how to play the game. He's the longest living player because I had him settle in Styxwater, which is the main fort that I usually spawn my characters in at. Other than that, pretty chill guy. In my world and in every Dwarf Fortress world, you have a randomly generated pantheon. And within my pantheon, I have a goddess named the Fat. But over time, I really came to understand the ideals of the Fat, the goddess of misery and torture. Therefore, I made all the characters that I could follow her so that their murderous rampages could be considered as practicing their religion. Splart Roastpat, the perplexing horn of murder. She was my first character to ever encounter the Forest Titan. The Forest Titan is an overpowered fuck, to put it lightly. If he ever spots you, he quickly covers you in webs, which are essentially inescapable, and snaps your neck in around 3 turns, and you die. This new character strolled up to a quaint little village and started to spar with the townsfolk. After incapacitating most of them with his sparring axe, he came across an accomplished fighter. They squared off in a legendary battle, but at the end he kicked in both his lungs and sliced off one of his tendons in his legs. So, in a last effort to escape, he suffocated behind his house because of lack of a lung. And as I was looking through Dwarf Fortress Legends Viewer, I found out that this man still lives in the world. He even got married long after Splart died. The Chad. I created a new person named Fenny. Instead of making her an adept axeman like everyone else, she was more into charisma instead. But unfortunately, this route turned out to have its weak points in adventure mode, so I retired her with my other character in Styxwater. My last character that I've created so far is a male goblin named Splart Slipperdrummed, the Glitter Worry. To put it lightly, he was my magnum opus. When I loaded him up, I played around with him a bit and realized he didn't have to sleep for some reason. I didn't quite know if this was some sort of glitch in my game or if it's an actual feature, but I rolled with it nonetheless. To test his strength, I started a raid on Labyrinth, which resulted in 20 kills and the end of the fort. Then I started traveling. One time I was actually ambushed by around 15 armed people at the same time, and I killed all of them with minimal injury. Another time I started getting tired of just using my axe to kill everything, so I started killing people with coins that I threw at them, because why not? Another time I went to the Forest Titan that had killed around 3 of my last players and started shooting arrows at him from a safe distance. Reasonably not trying to die because this Titan is overpowered with its web ability, but eventually I ran out of arrows and I looked at my throwing coins. I threw a total of about 30 coins at the Titan, breaking all of its bones and eventually finishing off with a silver coin. As a celebration, I traveled around telling stories of Splart, the one who killed the Forest Titan. When I got bored when the tales that I told weren't getting recognized, I went out to search for a new challenge and found a labyrinth. In the labyrinth, which ironically isn't very complicated to get around, there was a minotaur, which was surprisingly easy to kill. Not much to talk about. Next I went north and found another titan in the tundra, the last of its kind. Looking around it, it had already killed a small battalion of dwarves, and the coins on them helped with the titan's own demise. I landed the finishing blow with a copper coin. This fight was less climatic though, because I've never seen this titan until I killed it. And second, I don't think it had a special broken power, or even a power at all, unlike the last one. After I killed it though, it actually changed the age from the age of titans to the age of griffins, which is pretty cool, not gonna lie. After that, I found and killed a vampire and drank its blood, and became a vampire, which apparently gives you the ability to never have to eat or drink again. Which, if you're keeping tally, I don't have to eat or drink because of my vampirism, and I don't have to sleep because of my goblinism. And I never get tired, so I can run as fast as I want all the time. This is by far the most overpowered character that I have ever created. Anyways, continuing my story. After wandering around the world a bit, Splart found a necromancer tower. When he enters the tower, there's a dwarf that's using magic to try and blind Splart, but eventually he defeats him without getting blinded. Hey Gag, how do you know the dwarf's magic would make you blind? Wouldn't you have to endure the blindness magic first because you thought it was going to be an easy win, but you underestimated his magic and he kills you, so you eventually have to do a glitch where you technically make a functioning save state if you forced off the game? You can't prove anything. Anyways, after totally not dying, Splart meets the necromancer that owns the tower during the duel with the dwarf. After the dwarf is dead, the necromancer resurrects his severed head, which proceeds to attack Splart, but eventually, after a cycle of killing and resurrecting and killing again, the severed head stays down in a bloody pulp, unable to be resurrected anymore. Splart, being a little bit annoyed, steals all the necromancer's books, but makes good friends with them and his servant, so he could eventually maybe come back and learn to be a necromancer. After that, Splart started adventuring again, one time going far north to kill many goblins in a way that is basically a meat grinder. Another time, he swims far off to an island and tries to kill the remaining population of kobolds, but apparently they are very hard to find. Another time, he became a lord of the castle by killing the previous owner. After that, he hasn't really done much else, and I intend on retiring him for a while so I can see what other characters I can ascend to godhood. My only regret for this character was that he was not a follower of the Fat. I had a guy that had 50 cats, but the only thing that he accomplished was lagging the fuck out of my computer. There was a world that I tried to make for the sole purpose of killing everyone in it, but the character I set out to kill everyone died from a pack of hyenas while he was asleep. I had a jumping Spider-Man that had 4 shields and 2 axes, but it turned out to be a strategy that didn't work too well. At some point I was a stitched together being from the world necromancer Autumn that had 1 eye, 2 horns, and a lust for blood. I don't play Dwarf Fortress much anymore, not because it's boring. In fact, when I do, I tend to have a really good time. Although, I'm more waiting for additional content to be added, so it can breathe new life into the game. Right now, I think the adventure mode is neglected a lot, but I truly think it has potential, maybe even transcend what the game was supposed to be. And I'm excited for what's to come. Anyways, goodbye.